Here's a story that doesn't look like a wealth story at all. Warren Buffett is worth well over $100 billion, yet he still lives in the same Omaha house he bought in 1958 for about $31,500. For decades, he drove himself to work, ate simple meals, and kept a routine that looked more like that of a retired neighbor than of one of the most successful investors in history. If you passed him in a grocery store, you probably wouldn't notice anything unusual, just an older man picking up lunch. Most people hear that and assume it's a personality quirk, but the data points to something broader. Large surveys of millionaires repeatedly show that many don't live in elite neighborhoods, don't drive luxury cars, and don't rely on obvious status signals. A large share built their net worth slowly through retirement accounts and long-term investing, not inheritance or sudden business exits. From the outside, their lives look ordinary, sometimes deliberately so. That creates a mismatch. We've learned to recognize wealth by spending: the house, the car, the upgrades. But wealth is really about ownership, assets compounding quietly in the background. The signals aren't the same. So the real question becomes, if financial independence rarely announces itself, how would you recognize it? In this video, we'll look at the patterns that tend to show up among quiet millionaires, people who built meaningful financial security without drawing attention, and how recognizing these signs can help you avoid comparing yourself to the wrong benchmarks. Reduce the pressure to perform wealth you don't need, and focus on behaviors that actually move you toward financial independence. Because the biggest misunderstanding about money isn't how people build wealth. It's where people expect to see it. To understand why this happens, we first need to look at a pattern hiding in plain sight, what I call the quiet millionaire phenomenon. You've probably stood next to one and never noticed. They're the neighbor cutting the grass in worn sneakers. The coworker is reheating leftovers instead of ordering delivery. The parent is driving a carpool in a 10-year-old sedan with a cracked bumper. Nothing about them signals wealth. And that's the point. Roughly 80% of millionaires are self-made. No inheritance, no trust fund. Just decades of steady decisions that compound quietly. While social media feeds you private jets and leased luxury SUVs, most financially independent people look ordinary. Here's the contrast most people miss. The household leasing a $90,000 SUV at 7% interest may be paying over $1,200 a month just for the car. The quiet millionaire next door is driving a paid-off Honda and redirecting that same $1,200 into index funds. Over 20 years, at roughly 10% average annual returns, that difference alone can grow into hundreds of thousands. Flash absorbs cash. Silence compounds it. We've been conditioned to associate wealth with visible consumption: big houses, gated communities, designer labels. But historically, the average millionaire home has been far from mansion territory. Even today, many financially independent households live in middle-class neighborhoods, not luxury enclaves. Lower property taxes, lower maintenance, lower pressure to keep up. That's not accidental, it's structural. Quiet millionaires understand that visibility increases expectations. Expectations increase spending. Spending reduces flexibility. And flexibility is the real asset. They're not trying to look rich, they're trying to stay rich. In 2025, financial fragility hides behind high incomes and polished Instagram feeds. Meanwhile, real stability hides behind paid-off assets, maxed retirement accounts, and years of boring consistency. If you start seeing wealth as restraint instead of display, something shifts. The question stops being, what can I show? And becomes, what can I keep? And that mindset becomes clearer when you look at the first visible clue most people overlook: the car in the driveway. They drive boring, paid-off cars, walk through any corporate parking lot. The newest luxury SUV usually doesn't belong to the wealthiest person there. Quiet millionaires treat cars for what they are: depreciating assets. The average new vehicle price is hovering around the high $40,000 range. Add financing at current rates, and that payment can easily cross $800 to $1,000 a month. Stretch that over 5 or 6 years, and you've quietly committed 6 figures to something losing value every day. Now compare that to a 5-year-old Toyota or Honda, paid off, no monthly payment, lower insurance, lower registration, lower stress. That difference isn't cosmetic, it's mathematical. A $900 monthly car payment invested instead, even at conservative long-term market returns, compounds into serious money over 15 or 20 years. Not flashy money, and quiet money. The kind that starts funding options instead of obligations. Most self-made millionaires don't upgrade cars on a status schedule. They upgrade when the car stops serving its purpose. 3 to 5 years old is common. Reliable, predictable, boring on the outside. But here's the subtle part. Driving a modest car protects you socially. No pressure to explain success, no raised expectations from friends or extended family, no internal urge to match the image with lifestyle inflation elsewhere. It also trains discipline. Every time you choose reliability over prestige, you reinforce a larger identity, builder, not performer. And once you start seeing the car as a cash flow decision instead of a personality statement, something shifts. You realize transportation is a tool, not a trophy. That same logic carries into a much bigger purchase, the place you live. They live in modest neighborhoods. Drive through a typical middle-class neighborhood on a Saturday morning. Kids riding bikes, lawns half-mowed, minivans in the driveway. Statistically, there's a good chance that at least one household on that street has a 7-figure net worth. That surprises people. We've been taught that wealth clusters behind gates, but historically, the average millionaire home has been far from mansion territory. Adjusted for today's dollars, it's comfortable, not extravagant. Even now, many financially independent households choose homes that are well below what banks say they can afford. Why? Housing is usually the largest expense in a lifetime. Stretching for a bigger home doesn't just raise the mortgage. It increases property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, furnishings, and the quiet pressure to upgrade everything inside it. A $900,000 home versus a $600,000 home isn't just a $300,000 difference. Over 30 years at current mortgage rates, that gap can translate into hundreds of thousands in additional interest alone, money that could have been invested. Quiet millionaires understand leverage differently. They use it cautiously. They avoid becoming house rich and cash poor. There's also a psychological advantage. Living in a modest neighborhood reduces comparison pressure. If everyone around you is remodeling kitchens and adding pools, it becomes harder to stay disciplined. But in a stable middle-class area, expectations are grounded. The baseline is normal. Lower fixed costs mean higher flexibility. And flexibility compounds. It's not about denying comfort. It's about protecting margin. Because once your fixed expenses are manageable, investing consistently becomes automatic instead of stressful. And that brings us to the habit that makes all of this possible. The way they approach everyday spending decisions. They're extremely intentional about spending. Watch how a quiet millionaire shops. It doesn't look dramatic. It looks slow. They compare unit prices at the grocery store. They wait 48 hours before clicking buy now. They read reviews before replacing a $200 appliance. Not because they're cheap, because they're calibrated. Impulse spending is expensive this year. Subscription creep alone can quietly drain hundreds per month. Streaming, premium apps, food delivery memberships, software tools you forgot you signed up for. Quiet millionaires audit that regularly. If it doesn't add value, it's gone. Here's a detail most people overlook. Many millionaires spend less than $200 a month eating out. That's not deprivation, it's intention. They'll happily host friends at home, cook well, and enjoy it. But they won't normalize $80 weeknight dinners out of convenience. And yes, many use coupons. That surprises people. But the habit isn't about saving $3 on paper towels. It's about reinforcing identity. If you consistently look for value in small purchases, you protect discipline in large ones. The interesting part is the contrast. They'll spend 20 minutes comparing two $40 items, then, without hesitation, invest $5,000 into something that compounds long-term: education, a business system, an index fund allocation. The difference isn't price, it's payoff horizon. Spending is filtered through one question: does this improve my future cash flow, capacity, or quality of life in a lasting way? That filter reduces noise, it reduces regret, and it keeps lifestyle inflation from quietly outpacing income. Because once you master spending discipline, the next layer becomes more subtle: how you talk about money at all. They avoid talking about money but understand it deeply. Ask a quiet millionaire what they're worth, and you'll get a vague smile. Ask them about market cycles, tax efficiency, or how compound interest works, and the conversation shifts fast. They don't advertise numbers. They study structure. That distinction matters. In social settings, they rarely bring up raises, portfolio gains, or property values. Not out of secrecy, out of stability. Talking too much about money changes the dynamics. It invites comparison. It raises expectations. Sometimes it even increases subtle pressure to spend. But privately, they're fluent. They understand how a 401k match is free money. They know the difference between a 0% balance transfer and a 22% credit card APR. And they can explain why reinvesting dividends matters more than chasing trending stocks. Here's a statistic that tells you everything. About 88% of wealthy individuals read at least 30 minutes a day. Not just headlines, books, long-form analysis. Financial literacy doesn't happen by accident. They learn the dangers of high-interest debt early. They understand why compound growth is slow in the beginning and explosive later. They recognize that hyped investments often transfer wealth from the impatient to the disciplined. And here's the subtle edge. Because they're informed, they don't panic easily. When markets dip 15%, they don't sell out of fear. They've seen corrections before. They know downturns are part of the cycle. Knowledge reduces emotional volatility. Emotional stability protects long-term returns. They're not performers of wealth. They're students of it. And once you understand money at that level, your strategy becomes clear. Consistency over excitement. That's where the real compounding begins. They invest consistently for decades. 3 out of 4 millionaires point to one reason for their success: steady investing over a long period of time. Not perfect timing, not viral trades, not sudden windfalls. Consistency. Most start with something simple: a workplace retirement plan. Around 8 out of 10 millionaires regularly contributed to theirs. That alone becomes powerful when combined with employer matching and automatic payroll deductions. It doesn't feel exciting. That's the advantage. The S&P 500 has delivered average annual returns north of 10% over the past 2 decades when dividends are reinvested. That means $100 invested in the early 2000s could grow into more than $700 today. Now scale that to $500 a month for 20 or 25 years. The numbers stop being theoretical. Quiet millionaires don't chase headlines. When crypto surges 80% in a year, they don't abandon their plan. When a hot stock doubles in 6 months, they don't liquidate retirement accounts to jump in. They automate contributions. They rebalance occasionally. They stay invested during downturns. And here's the subtle edge. They increase contributions when income rises instead of inflating lifestyle first. A bonus becomes an additional investment, not a new car lease. Over decades, that discipline compounds into something most people underestimate: optionality, the ability to step away from work earlier than expected, the freedom to downshift without panic. It's boring, it's repetitive, it's emotionally quiet. But that's the formula, and once investing becomes a habit rather than an event, the final shift is philosophical. Wealth stops being about numbers and starts being about freedom. They choose quality over status signals. Look closely at how quiet millionaires buy things. The pattern is subtle but consistent. They don't chase logos. They chase durability. About half of the surveyed millionaires have never spent more than $100 on a pair of shoes. That sounds surprising in a world where limited edition sneakers sell for $300 or more within hours. But the quiet builder doesn't care about resale hype. They care about the cost per year of use. A well-made $90 pair worn for 5 years beats a $300 pair replaced every season. The same logic applies everywhere. Furniture that lasts decades instead of fast fashion decor. Appliances with repair records instead of the trendiest finish. Warehouse store jeans over designer labels. The absence of branding becomes its own statement, not to impress others, but reduce waste. Here's the hidden edge. When you stop buying to signal status, you stop outsourcing your identity to products. That lowers spending pressure dramatically. No need to upgrade phones annually. No urge to match someone else's vacation. Quality spending is selective. They will pay for craftsmanship, health, or tools that increase earning capacity. But they won't overpay for prestige. That discipline protects something larger than cash. It protects psychological stability. No constant comparison, no treadmill of upgrades. And once you stop measuring wealth by visible goods, the definition changes entirely. At that point, the conversation shifts from what you own to what you control. Your time, your flexibility, your options. That's where quiet wealth reveals its real purpose. They define wealth as freedom, not possessions. Ask a quiet millionaire what they're building toward, and you won't hear bigger house or faster car. You'll hear words like optionality, flexibility, control. For high net worth households, the top financial goal isn't consumption, it's financial independence. That means passive income covering core living expenses. mortgage paid off, retirement accounts funded, investments producing cash flow. Here's what that looks like in real life. A couple in their late 40s with $2 million invested at a 4% withdrawal rate can generate roughly $80,000 per year without touching principal. That's not yacht money, but it's walk away from a bad job money. That distinction matters. Quiet millionaires measure success by how many months or years they could live without earned income, not by how expensive their vacations look online. Plenty of high earners feel trapped this year. Large mortgages, private school tuition, 2 luxury car payments, strong income, low flexibility. From the outside, it looks impressive. From the inside, it feels tight. Meanwhile, the paid-off house and maxed retirement accounts create breathing room, freedom to take a sabbatical, freedom to change careers, freedom to say no. That's the real return on disciplined investing and restrained spending. Not applause, not validation, autonomy. And once you start viewing wealth through that lens, everything reorganizes. The car, the house, the shopping habits, the silence about money, they're not random traits. They're signals of a deeper system. So the real question isn't whether you look wealthy. It's whether your money quietly gives you choices. Key takeaways. Quiet wealth isn't a personality trait. It's a structural outcome. The common thread across everything we've covered isn't frugality for its own sake. It's margin, lower fixed costs, fewer visible obligations, steady investing, emotional control. Over time, those decisions convert income into optionality. The quiet millionaire doesn't look disciplined in one dramatic moment. They look ordinary, repeatedly. That repetition is the edge. What changes your financial life isn't a single big move. It's the removal of constant financial pressure. When cars are paid off, housing is reasonable, spending is intentional, and investments are automatic. Freedom stops being abstract. It becomes measurable. If this perspective resonates, you're probably less interested in looking successful and more interested in staying stable. And that mindset, more than income alone, is what quietly separates builders from performers.